Lights from Close Encounter of the Third Kind, plus the number 47, plus 20% irritation, 10% surprise, 30% joy, and 40% disappointment. Equal Season 4 of Discovery.
Initial thoughts. Part 1. Initial thoughts. Part 1. Initial thoughts.
We're here talking about the penultimate episode of Season 4 of Star Trek Discovery, the 10C. I'm signaling 100% spoiler pheromones if that's not what you're here for. This episode is a marked improvement from the last, but that's a really low bar to clear. As Discovery prepares to use dot bots loaded with the pheromones they collected last week to try and get in 10C's hyperfield. I'm going to start by giving the entire episode a like for team building, which honestly would have been a more interesting title than the number designation to the race they're meeting with. It finally feels like our ancillary characters have something truly to contribute to the show. This is both bridge officers and recurring characters. The involvement and participation in this episode is a nice change from the compartmentalization of characters on this series. The dots in Discovery get sucked into 10C's hyperfield. I feel ashamed as an avid Star Trek viewer who has only just realized in this shot as they go into the hyperfield that the ship gained an A to its registry number after the refit. After stabilizing the ship, it's contacted with a pattern of lights and pheromones that the team work to figure out is a series of math equations. It may not be 10C's primary language, but it's how they've chosen to communicate with Discovery. I've got a like for this whole concept. Feels like a classic Trek plot, kind of like Darmok, but handled in a much more interesting manner than the hanging out in a sandpit being hunted by an invisible enemy. Eventually, 10C sends them this jelly bean ship that creates a hatch like Discovery's and clearly wants closer contact. Before we get to that, though, the ones going in do a bit of preparation. I have my usual like for Grudge, followed immediately by 2 dislikes for the scene of yelling. One for both Burnham and Saru doing it. This was a stupid joke early in the season, but in the penultimate episode, what was the actual point of that? It's easily my least favorite scene in Discovery and maybe all of Trek. Grudge didn't like it, and neither do I. I have a usual like for the moving forward of Tarina and Saroo'S romance. Now that was a scene between Saru and Burnham I can get down on, when she gives him some advice about Vulcans when he doubts the love between him and Tarina. The two of them walking into 10C's jelly bean, not knowing if they'd come out again, was cute. The negotiating team are starting to make real headway communicating with 10C, but Tarka stops all of that when he gets General Andouille to sabotage Discovery a bit to help him get to the DMA power source. In the other main plot, I've got 2 likes for Jet Reno while a prisoner. The first for her impassioned one-on-one with Book about losing her wife and how pain makes you blind. This woman is right up there with Guinan as far as wisdom at the right time. The second like is for her toward the end figuring out that Tarka's equations add up to stopping the DMA, but will still probably destroy Earth and Navarre in the process. Tarka claims he's only had 2 friends and Book was one of them, but it appears Tarka's only real friend is himself. Doesn't really matter in the end since Book ends up locked up with her when he confronts Tarka about it. I'm glad the writers tied up the question of how Zora, the sentient computer, didn't detect Reno leaving on Book's ship. But as Adira finds the device fooling them just as it doesn't matter anyway, and the plot device has run its course. I really do like the context and the bits running through the different threads of this episode that all tie into the same themes of building a bridge between gaps, in culture or individuals. And as usual, Reese looks really good in the command chair. I'll be honest, I'm not sure where this ties up. I have no more grand predictions. I'm just gonna wait and hope this season is ended better than the rest has been handled. This has been one of the most boring overall seasons of Trek to date for me. I don't think it's as bad as some of the common reviews on places like IMDb make it out to be, but it's been fraught with problems. I wish they hadn't backloaded the season so hard. Again. This episode was the first in many that didn't just creep along in the plot. We'll see what happens. And if you haven't already, go check out the massive praise I have for Picard this week. Live long and prosper. I've been your host, Dustin Wing.